Morena koutou. He karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru. Whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mākinakina te uta. Kia mātaratara ki tai. He ake ana te atakura. He tio, he huka, he hauhunga. Ti hei Māori ora. Welcome to our Macrons, Te Reo Macrons for GIS users webinar. Great to have you all here with us. Hi everyone, I'm Duane Wilkins. I'm a GIS advisor capability building here at LINZ, and I'm here with my colleague Wendy. And what's your role, Wendy?
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Wendy Shaw, aho. So I'm the secretary for the New Zealand Geographic Board. Ngā Pou Taunaha o Aotearoa, Memorial Markers of the Landscape. So that's the statutory board that looks after place naming formally in New Zealand. And I'm going to talk very briefly on sort of Macrons initially, just as a sort of, to put everything into perspective and context.
Cool. Kia ora, Wendy. And also Ian Harrison. Kia ora, Ian.
Kia ora. Yeah, I'm Ian Harrison, Senior Spatial Analyst here at LINZ. So I work in the data services team, so I've had a bit to do with wrangling data and managing Macrons, I guess you could say.
Cool. Cheers, Ian. So we're actually sitting in the same room, but we're sharing the microphone to make logistics easy. So this morning we're going to be, of course, talking about Macrons, and I'm just going to share the screen for a moment. And one of the joys of webinars is that we're trying to avoid PowerPoints entirely. So there's a couple of challenges we're finding with that, but kei pai. So what we're going to be looking at this morning is understanding Macrons and their importance, and also for GIS users as well, of course, because we're often providing materials for others. We're going to be talking through, Ian will be taking us through Unicode and ASCII and discussing UTF-8, just only the stuff you need to know. We'll be talking about working with CSV data, which is a common text format that we use for transferring data. We'll be looking at fonts that support Macron use, having a look at doing some querying, filters, how you might use it with type ahead searches, setting up your keyboard for Macrons, and then also having a look at a couple of extensions and tools. So we'll be going through that technical discussion, demonstration, and the online chat. I'll be jumping on the chat, and please feel free to introduce yourself, put any questions on there. Just avoid using the Q&A if you can. Just put it as a normal chat to participants in the panel. And then once we're finished, if anyone is interested in jumping in as a panelist, if you've got some expertise to share, or if you've got some questions that you'd like to ask of us, well, we've got Wendy with us as well. You'll be welcome to just put them on the chat there. So, all right, anything else I've missed, guys? All good? So what I'm going to do is hand over to you, Wendy, and Wendy's got some notes prepared for us, and I'm going to share these with you afterwards, but I'm going to attempt to drive while Wendy is going to be talking.
Sure,
all
sure.
Good, all good.
Yeah. So my part, and I'm going to keep it very brief because this is really about the technical stuff, is about Macrons themselves and why they matter. So in Māori, the word is tohu tō, so that's the word for Macron. What it is a horizontal line symbol that falls above the 5 vowel sounds. So that's a, e, or, u. So technically they're called a diacritic mark, and they denote the long vowel sound that assists with meaning, spelling and pronunciation. A macron forms part of the orthography of a standardised system of written language, which includes, apart from macrons or diacritics, capitals, word separation, composite words, hyphens, possessives, etc. Other languages use accent graphs, accent acutes, umlauts, cedellas, and circumflexes, etc. So you'll be quite familiar with those in the French language. So the next question I have is, when did we start using macrons? To some it may seem that it's a relatively recent occurrence, but pretty much almost as soon as the Māori language started to be written, macrons were used. Reverend William Williams' Māori Dictionary, first published in 1844, used macrons. And many other early manuscripts and publications consistently used macrons as well. However, they were not typically shown on maps and charts because fonts were not able to produce or provide for them. And also from a cartographic perspective, it was thought that they would interfere with map interpretation. So it wasn't until 1987 that the Māori Language Act came into force, and it actually made the Māori language an official language of New Zealand to preserve and revitalise the language and to restore its mana. Te taura whiri I te reo Māori, the Māori Language Commission was subsequently established, and it set standardised orthographic conventions for writing the Māori language, which include macrons. So the Geographic Board began actively using macrons in its official place names from the 1990s. An early example is Littleton Harbour, Whakaraupo, which came about through the Ngāi Tahu Claim Settlement Act in 1998. So you might ask the question, why do macrons matter? Well, meaning is really important when it comes to a place name. It helps to create a sense of belonging and connection by a community or individuals. Making sure a Māori place name is correct is an important step to ensuring we are pronouncing it correctly and therefore celebrating what's at the heart of that name, which is its meaning or story. The board endorses Te Taura Whiri I Te Reo Māori's goal of making macron use part of everyday communication for all New Zealanders. However, the board also acknowledges dialectical differences which are important to local people, and they may influence decisions on place names case by case. And an example of this is with Ngāi Tahu. They pronounce the NG sound with a K, so Aoraki Mount Cook is Aorangi in a standardised form. And for Waikato Tainui, they typically prefer the double vowels instead of the macrons. Again, that's a case-by-case decision, but that can make things difficult when you have composite words in terms of trying to interpret what the meaning of a word is. Next question I have is, how many official Māori place names have macrons? Well, you'll be surprised to know there's actually only 1,270, and that's out of 7,266 official Māori place names, noting that we've got approximately 19,500 official names in total, so that's English and Māori place names, and noting there's a total of about 53,000 official and unofficial place names in the Gazetteer. So I just want to share with you some examples, if I could, of are we okay with time? So Māpuia, which was a decision made last year near Nelson, it means a place of abundance with a macron on the first A. However, without the macron, it can mean a kind of crying or sobbing. Ruakaka, that was officially named just this year, and it refers to a place where the kaka parrot hides. Without the macrons, it means something quite different, and I can explain that later if you're interested. Oho River, the ancestor Honui Ananaia pursued his wife, Wairaka, from Mahia to the Kapiti coast, naming many of the major rivers as he crossed them. Near the end of his journey, he named a relatively small river after himself, Oho of Ho. Kapiti Island is another interesting one. Kapiti in actual fact without the macron. The full name relates to the junction line of the boundaries between Naitara and the Rangatani tribal lands. The name does not relate to the single word Kapiti with the macron on the A, meaning cabbage. And just the last example, Waitangi Tahuna River was named 2018 by the board, came from Ngaitahu. Waitangi is translated as crying for water and Tahuna as riverbed. So combined, the meaning is weeping waters. I just also, if you will allow me, just to touch on the reuse of data, just wanted to remind you that the LINZ data service holds the board's authoritative layers for place names, for point, line, polygon, and plus we have a names labels layer as well. And last couple of things, why do official names matter? So there's a bunch of reasons, and we've got those all outlined in the board's latest annual report, which went online last week. But the two things I really wanted to point out are that official place names matter because they recognise heritage and culture, and part of culture is language, and also official names ensure standardised and consistent and accurate place names. And the last thing I just wanted to mention too is there is a compliance provision in the New Zealand Geographic Board Act 2008, and it means that all official place names are required to be used on official documents by central government, and that includes Macrons. So I'll leave it over to the guys to explain about the technical stuff. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Wendy. That's awesome. I might just need to grab that annual report link from you after. Cool. Oh, that one's not quite working, but we'll fix that before we share it with everybody. Thanks, Wendy. Okay, so now you've got the Duane and Ian show for the next 20 minutes or so.
Lucky.
So some great context. Thank you, Wendy, because I'm absolutely hopeless at context. So what we're going to be doing is a bit of an on-the-fly, ad hoc, looking at some aspects of macrons and things that we've learned over the last month or two in preparing for this hui. So Ian, would you like to kick us off with just share your screen? And I'm going to swap microphone over to you. And I'm going to, if I'm sharing my screen, I'm going to stop share. Yep.
Can you see that?
Yep, good to go.
So just as a really basic intro to character encoding, if there's one thing that you should take away today is remember UTF-8. So this is a type of character encoding that actually supports all the different characters around the world. So that includes Māori words with macrons, the characters that are used there. But for example, there's almost 75,000 Chinese characters that is in the UTF-8 standard. In the past, or pre-UTF-8, or even now, where problems have happened is that people have used character encodings that don't support special characters, including those with macrons. This is because in the beginning, in the 1960s, ASCII was widely used, and that's just your basic first 128 characters, basically what you see on your keyboard. Unicode came along and basically extended this, so now there's over 1 million characters in there. Where we run into problems is if someone has created a word in another character set entirely, and then they try and open it in Unicode and your software doesn't know what it is, and it becomes kind of corrupted. So that's what we're just going to run through a few examples of what you might commonly come across. But yeah, just remember Unicode UTF-8 is what you want to be using if you get any chance to to select the character encoding.
Cool. Was there a graph on that page?
Yes, good point. So I'll just minimise that. Yeah. So this, yeah, this is quite indicative of, here in blue is UTF-8, how it's taken off in usage. Prior to that, ASCII was a common one, and as you can see, it's fallen quite markedly. So don't use it because I tell you, use it because everyone else is pretty much.
Cool. Thanks, Ian. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Here we go. And so we have got a list of links that we're going to share with you. But the first thing I wanted to do is just to talk about Unicode characters. So the very simplest or the most basic way you can add a macron is to use what are called Unicode key combinations. And so this document that you can see on screen at the moment, we'll share this with you. If you've done things like I will have done, is insert from file, symbol, then browse through for ages until you find the right one, then insert, paste. Here's one way that you can type in a macron straight on any computer using a Unicode font. So typically what you would do, and it's not going to work on my computer because I haven't got a numeric keypad, but I can still show you, is you would type in Alt and then 05, hang on, 0256, and it would usually go. But because I'm typing the numbers in at the top of my keyboard, it's not going to work. If I have a numeric keypad and type them in, it will appear in there. But here are the shortcuts for each of those codes, and you'll note that they're different for capitals and for lowercase. But that is something that if you're doing a few macrons every so often, and you didn't particularly want to learn other things or other ways to do it, then just print this off and stick it on the wall. That would be quite a useful thing to do. Okay, what else we got there? Sample of data. So how have we been processing data for the last 20 years or so? So Ian mentioned UTF-8 earlier. UTF-8 is the one thing you want to write on your hand, tattoo it on there. It's the big learning for me. So for the past 20 years, when I've been saving data, and I'm still getting used to this new way of working in Office 365, but if I was going to save this data set, I would save it as an Excel sheet, or in the bad old days, an XLS, or I would skip down through the page and I would grab a CSV. By saving it with the CSV, as I've always done for 20 years, it strips out all of the macrons. So the big learning for me, and that we're happy to present for you today, if nothing else in your entire day, you've learnt, save it as a CSV UTF-8 comma delimited file. That will retain the macrons, and when you open it again, it's going to retain those macrons. If I didn't go UTF-8 CSV, you'll end up with a whole bunch of question marks, as we have been for the last umpteen years. So that's the key trick I wanted to share, is that UTF-8 CSV. Okay, Ian, you're going to show us an example in Excel. So I'm going to flip back to you.
Okay, let's share my screen again. So this is just a little thing to check. Sometimes you'll get a CSV, and if you're like me, you just double click it to open it in Excel. And lo and behold, you'll see that doesn't look right. And so one thing you can try, it may not solve the problem, but often it does, is just quit Excel and then open a blank worksheet. And then we can go up here to data. From text CSV and browse to our CSV file. And what this lets us do is actually choose the character encoding when it imports. So there's my file, import, and hopefully a dialog box will pop up. And see, for some reason on my computer, it's defaulted to this Western European Windows. And you can actually see in the preview, you may not be able to see, it's quite small, it's corrupted. Yeah. So we just go down, choose Unicode UTF-8. That's looking much better, and just click load. And here it is. You can see that's worked, thankfully. One other thing that you may come across, I'll just double click this again, which I've seen reference to on the web as to how another way to fix this, but it just doesn't work for me. I just have to move my window a bit. There's a little wee drop down here, and you can choose more commands. It's rather convoluted and it doesn't work, but just so you know, advanced, scroll down to general, web options, and then it's actually got an encoding option here. And it's blanked out in my case. I don't know why sometimes it lets me change it, sometimes it doesn't, but when it does let me change it, it actually crashes Excel. But just another thing to look at if you're having problems and the data import method doesn't work. If it doesn't work, it may mean, or it probably will mean, that the CSV itself is corrupted, and you have to go back to source and ask whoever provided it to you to redo it with UTF-8.
Cool.
I think that's back to you now, Duane. You
Cool. Thanks, Ian.
talk about fonts.
So, yeah. So, next thing we're going to have a look at is how do you get Macrons to draw on a map? So the key thing to distinguish between is your data is stored in a database format, but it's displayed using a font. And not all fonts will support Macron use, and I've come across many fonts that you'll have this beautiful heading with a Macron that's in Times New Roman, and it just doesn't look great. So the simplest thing is just to jump on the web and go do a quick search for fonts that support Macrons, and you can get lists like these. Another way to do it is to test, okay, I've got a font in my tool, because quite often in GIS you're limited either by the fonts that are on your laptop or MacBook or Linux, or fonts that are installed on your server and available to you in the software. So what I'd suggest there is to take something like this, which is just some sample text, and to copy paste that into one of the fields and use that as a check to make sure it's going to display well with whatever font you've chosen. But there are a lot of fonts that will support Macrons. If in doubt, Arial, Tahoma, Verdana, Calibri, but you can also find the fonts that are available to you on different tools, different websites, by just putting in a Macron character, like here, as your preview. And then ones like Hebrew or Habo, you can see it's not going to support it, but everything else looks pretty good here. So you could use almost any of these, and there's another one you wouldn't want to use. Okay, what else? That is me for that one, Macron fonts. So simplest way is to find the font you want and then just test it. I'm going to hand you back to Ian, who's going to have a look at searching and database options. So I'll just stop share here.
Share my screen. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a little bit of a database scenario here. In this example, I'm using Postgres, but it could be anything: SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL. They all support UTF-8. So if you are creating a new database, or you have an existing database and you want to make sure it's in UTF-8, you can bring up the properties, as I have in this copy of the Gazetteer database. Sorry. Properties of the database, not the schema. And here you can see encoding UTF-8. So this may be something that you want your database administrator to do, and it's even got a New Zealand subset of that. So that's all good. And now I'm just going to go down to I've got a table here called GAS name, which is the Gazetteer place names. And what I was wanting to show is what to think about if you are setting up a database, how to handle macrons. One of the challenges that we have is often when people are searching for a name, they won't actually type in the macron itself, they'll just type in the plain name. So here we've got a field name. So if you imagine someone's doing a search, essentially the database is going to be doing a query where name equals, and if I use Macrons, whoops, Island, and I run that, it doesn't find anything because our name field is macronized. So I'd have to type in a macron to get the result. That's not ideal. To make it easier, what we've done here is we've actually duplicated the name field in this other column called ASCII name. So we don't have macrons in this. So if we're doing a web search for example, someone types in the name without a macron, we just search this column and we get our result. But of course, there may be clever people out there who could actually still type in the macron. And now we're looking at the column without the macron. So, what did I do? I think.
Is that how it's showing the error? Or is it?
That's.
Need a space.
No, it shouldn't do. I'll just Control Z. What did I do? Does that work? It may actually just.
Is that just the error it's throwing?
Yeah. Oh, that's better. I don't know what happened. Yeah.
It looks the same.
So, yeah, what we need to do in this case is actually the most bomb-proof way is to replace any macrons with their plain text equivalent. So, just as an example, in Postgres, it'll be different in whatever database you use, but we'll replace that search text with our macron saying look for anything that's a macronized A, and just replace it with
Could you put the umlaut as well in there, Ian, if they were doing that?
I'm not sure. No, I would just stick with the,
Just a plain old.
yeah. So as you can see here, even though we're searching the column without the macron, by replacing it with a standard A, we get a result. And the good thing is that what we would return to the user is actually the macronized name. So they would search for the name with or without a macron, but they'd always get it with the macron. Another thing to note is that instead of typing in that, you can use hexadecimal. This is not something that you need to sort of know inside out, but just be aware you may see some weirdness which looks like, yeah.
I think this is, if you use R, I've seen this also.
Right.
There's a link in our reference document
Yeah.
that I send out that includes something that looks a bit like this.
So all of that there is just representing that macronized A, and
Piece of cake.
still works. I mean, yeah, it's not intuitive or anything. So, but yeah, you might get in a situation where you have to use that. Anything else on databases? No, over to you, Duane.
Okay, cool. So we're going to, I knew there was a reason why I used this laptop without the keypad. We're going to set up how to, and I'll just share my screen, how to add and do the keyboard setup. And it's actually much, much easier than you might think. So here we go. Adding Te Reo Māori to your computer. Now you can go and have a look on this link, this kupu.maori.nz about macrons. But what we're going to do is really, really easy. We're going to go to start, and of course I left off the instructions of where to go, but this is what we're aiming for. This is also partly the reason why I didn't want to send this link out first, is so that we can add in things like what's missing here, which is to go to settings. And for many of you, your IT group may have already done this. I'm just going to hide the Zoom parts. We go to, sure it's region. We go language. And you can see here I've got US English installed and New Zealand English installed. And I go add a preferred language, and I just type in here Māori, Te Reo Māori, go next. And this may take a moment or two. Set as my display language, install pack. Actually, I'm going to leave that unticked and handwriting. Yep, that's fine. So I'm on a Surface tablet. And that'll take a moment to install. So once that's installed, it's going to be really, really easy for me to type macrons. I'm going to be able to come down here, change this Māori language, change my language of my computer to Māori. Going to be able to come over to any Word document, any document, and let's see if this is going to work. So the character that I'm going to type is the one immediately to the left of the number 1. And then I'm going to press a letter. And then I have a macronated character. So that's the one, the little tithe or the little dash. It's the on this keyboard, it's immediately under the escape button and above the tab. So if I press that and press A, I get a macronated A. It's auto capitalizing there. If I press that again and then E, I get an E. If I press that again, I get an R, E, an O, and an U. And then if I hold down caps lock and I do the same, I get an R, I get an E, get an E, get an O, and get an U. And there is how to literally that easy, how to type in macrons on your computer. So you press the little flick ticky tithe key and then the letter that you want it to be. Much easier than trying to fiddle around with old type and number and whatever the heck else. Type it on your keypad, or keep numlock is not typed in, blah, blah, blah. Just try that one. What you may need to do is swap your language to Māori over here. But just be aware that you've done that, and then if you have any issues, you can always swap it back. How do I know when to use them or not? So for me, with a lot of the work that I'm doing, I'm using this site, maoridictionary.co.nz. Very, very easy. So if I go in here and go Kōwhai and search, it gives me certainty that I'm typing in the word correctly. And if I copy that and come over here and paste it, then here's my macronated word. There are, of course, other sources that you can use. The Gazetteer is the authoritative source for place names, but often I actually find I don't have to type place names in because they're already coming through from somewhere else. So that's how to type in a macron anywhere on your computer, as long as you've got that keyboard language pack installed. And that's how I double check whether that macron is correct or not. So that's when I know how to use them or not. Last thing here, back to Ian. He's going to show us something in ArcGIS Pro. So yes. I will stop share. We're just about there, folks.
Okay, so just a quick word on geospatial file formats. Hopefully most of you are using file geodatabases or GeoPackage, but I've got a little example here of a shapefile because I know these are still commonly used, though it's not really recommended to use them anymore, but they do support macrons. If you open up a shapefile and you see there's some corruption with the macrons, just check to see if there's this CPG file, which is short for code page. And if there is, you can open it in a notepad, and all it contains is the character encoding to use. Here, UTF-8. So just to hopefully prove that this works, here we've got Macrons Island. We can add on, I'll just make the symbology a bit better. So you can see. So if I click on this, once it settles down, here, hopefully you can see this. Here you can see the macron has come through and looks great. Just to demonstrate that it actually is reading that file, I can go back here and I can actually change it to something else. We have an example here which is actually Korean. That apparently is Korean character encoding. Whoops. Save that. Go back, find my shapefile. I'll just refresh this to make sure it. And if we find our point, click on that, you can see it's gone wrong. So that CPG file is very important. But yeah, I would recommend actually not using shapefiles at all. I think file geodatabase and geopackage are much more robust, and they should just default to UTF-8 without you having to do anything.
If only someone had shown me that, Ian, 10 years ago.
Yeah. The other thing I probably should add is if you do all that and it still doesn't work, which actually is probably quite a common scenario, just go back to the source. It probably is that the source shapefile is corrupted and it needs to be recreated.
Cheers, Ian. Okay, so we're just about there, guys. The last part we've got is just we're going to look at a couple of resources. So one life-changing Chrome extension I want to show you, and another couple of other links there. And then we're into some Pātai Kōrero discussion and questions. And I've got one there for Wendy, and I've got one there for Ian. I'll give you a heads up, Ian, it's coming. How do you feel about Macrons and Python? I wonder if it was similar to.
Mention it briefly, but no expert.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. And others on the chat might have an idea too, which we can add them to the panel. So just share my screen for the last time. We're going to look at this life-changing extension for Chrome called Lazy Macrons. And for those of you who can't wait to get this, right now I'm going to put it on the chat, because this is, if you've learned UTF-8-CSV, this is the second thing. Where's the chat? Here we go. And preparing for this and other, okay, I can't find the chat. Where's my chat gone? Hang on. Okay, never mind. I'll find it. I'll paste it on the chat when I find it. Add Lazy Macrons to your browser, and you'll see this little icon turn up here. If the little red hat is on, then it's working fine. And basically what it's doing is it's kind of like an autocorrect of sorts. It's just going to swap out words that it recognizes, like Kōwhai, weta, which is always gives me a giggle, and hopefully, shall we, maybe we'll beat this bit out. Okay, weta. And I tell you what, we'll have a look here. We'll go google.com. So the first website I looked at once I'd installed this was, I thought it was the LINZ website, and I thought, oh wow, these guys have done something amazing, because it autocorrects to, if I go in here and I go Kōwhai, and it's not going to do it now. But when I type something like in a search, it usually will, there, it's just done it. It will automatically swap out the macronated OR for pretty much any word in that word list. And I'm sure you can go in there and add others as well. That little shortcut extension has saved me hours and hours of uncertainty, checking, looking up words when I know, oh, look, it's just done it for me. There's always a risk that it's the wrong word, but yeah, it's a balance. There is another site I wanted to show you. So that's Lazy Macrons, definitely worth getting. If you're on a more restricted or locked down PC, as I know many folks are, if you go to Māori.typeit.org, that's another cool website. So this is just a basic site here. Now I'm going to turn off my Macron auto thingy and type in here Kōwhai. Oops. And I go, okay, I need to have a macronated OR in there, and maybe I'll put a macronated R in there, and maybe I'll put it, and you can go crazy if you want, because this is incorrect, but you get the idea. You can go in there, and then you can copy paste that out to wherever you might want to go. I'll share a giggle with you. So weta spelt like that versus weta spelt like this. If you go and have a look on Māori dictionary, difference between weta and weta, then it'll give you a giggle. And of course, māoridictionary.co.nz is the source of all truth for me in terms of whether it's correct or not. We go on there and we have weta, and then we have weta down there, but I'm not going to spoil the fun. Okay, that's us. We are now finished our show and tell part. What I'm going to do, here comes back up my chat, and we are going to grab this short URL, not short URL, copy that link. I'm going to paste this into the chat just now so that everybody who, aroha mai Ngāri, oh yep, add on there, thanks Ollie. There's a link to that resource document which you can all jump on there and take a copy of if you want. But I'm going to email it out to you with some adjustments and fixes in there as well. Okay, so that is the end of what we were going to show you. And now we have time for just informal chat and any questions you might have. So I've got a question that I think is best for you, Ian, in relation to Python. Oh, Lindsay, yes, the recording will come out a bit later. I've just got to download it off Zoom, which can take some time, and then just chop out any inadvertent oopsies and put a nice cover on the front, and then I'll share that with you. The Macrons in Python, any thoughts on that one, Ian? Do you reckon it'll be similar to R? I can show that R link.
Yeah, it depends if it's Python 2 or 3. Python 2, make sure you read, when you read any text in, to decode it as UTF-8. And when you save anything out, you have to encode it as UTF-8. I think Python 3 is much better, and I need to check, but it may do it without you having to explicitly tell you. The only gotcha is there may be some old Python libraries that don't support UTF-8, but they should be documented. But yeah, definitely Python will be able to do it.
Cool, thanks Ian. And comment there from Wade, definition query in ArcMap. I recall having to use the like instead of the equals. Cool, something else we can try. And I guess it's also dependent on what version you're using, what software, yada, yada, yada. I checked in with the folks from Eagle before this to see what the deal was with ArcGIS and Macrons, and they said it wasn't supported at this moment officially, but from what I've experienced so far, it works fine on ArcGIS Online, works fine in Pro, so it definitely works. Wendy, had a question here for you from, just back up here, who was that one from? Kiwa, yeah. Her question was around tangata whenua preferences versus orthographic conventions and the use of macrons and place names. So this is the person. There is no one better in New Zealand to answer this question than Wendy, even though she won't admit it.
Not really.
Of course.
I mean, Te Taura Whiri Te Reo Māori, the Māori Language Commission, provide the orthographic conventions which the board essentially align with as much as it can. But where there are, and there's always consultation that occurs with mana whenua, tangata whenua. Sometimes the board gets it wrong. What's really important with macrons is that you know the story or the meaning that goes with the place name so that you can figure out how the macrons apply. So with Ohakune, we got it wrong. We put a macron on it last year, and Ngāti Rangi were not happy at all, although the other iwi liked the macron. So because we couldn't really resolve it, we returned to Ohakune without the macron. Mahia is in the spotlight a little bit at the moment, in that Rangomai Wahine have said that they had not been consulted on it, but the board in pretty much every case, well, not pretty much, in every case will consult with mana whenua on Māori place names, and we use an expert orthographic person who's been licensed with Te Taura Whiri in the Māori language. That person we typically use is a lady called Te Hau Mihiata Mason. She's tūhoi, but even then, you know, if the local people are very adamant about with or without macrons, even the other orthographic marks that we use, sometimes hyphens, then the board will typically defer to the local people on that. So dialect is really important for the board. It does steer away a little bit from consistency and standardisation of a written language, but those reasons for the change will always be outlined. So hopefully that answers your question.
Cool. Thank you, Wendy. There was a thought I just had and I've lost it. Oh, if people wanted to put a submission to change a place name or get a correction, Wendy, can we add that? We'll add that link into the document.
Sure.
And
How to make a proposal?
yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So big ups and big thanks to Ian and to Wendy for jumping in here, and also we're not necessarily experts in this up until about 2 months ago when I think it was an email from one of your team, Wendy, sort of prompted, hey, we should do a Macrons webinar. Oh man, I don't know nothing about Macrons. All good. Stick it up and we'll do it. So yeah, we figured it out and I just wish I had done it years and years and years ago. So kia ora koutou.
Kia ora.
We'll see you next time. Any feedback is welcome. You've got our email, dwilkins@lins.govt.nz or GrowGISNZ@lins.govt.nz. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Kia ora. Kia ora.